Hello, all you positive heads out there. Brandon Beecham here. Thanks for joining us. We have a spectacular discussion in store for you on today's episode. We are talking with none other than the founder of the CIA. And no, I do not mean that I have a medium channeling the spirit of Harry S. Truman. I got to work my way up to that much weirdness on the show. I'm referring to the founder of the other CIA, the Cosmic Intelligence Agency, and her name is Julija Simas. Hello, Julija. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for joining me all the way from Australia, Sydney, right?
No, I'm in Melbourne. Headquarters are in Melbourne.
Yeah, I knew it was one of the major cities.
Yes.
So glad to have you. And I guess just to jump right in and start things off, what can you tell us about the very interestingly named CIA or Cosmic Intelligence Agency and the aim behind this project?
Okay. Well, quite quickly, I suppose. The Cosmic Intelligence Agency name came to me when I was finishing my astrological studies in 2004, around that time. And in that time, I was reading a lot of texts, a lot of, astrology books and spiritual books and stuff. And the word cosmic intelligence came up a lot all the time. And I just loved the combination of it, cosmic intelligence. And then through a sort of a moment where I saw a logo that said something, it was Cox as in roosters, Cox International Australia. And I looked up and went, oh, that's CIA. And then I put Cosmic Intelligence Agency into that and went, oh my gosh, it's a circular logo. It's like the CIA, but it's the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. So I had the name before I had any idea of what I was going to do with it. But it was just such a, fantastic name that I thought, the world needs something like this now. And the whole idea about it was that we can all use the cosmic intelligence, and it doesn't need to be, regulated, formed, a particular organization in that sense. We can actually all be part of it. And that's why it's so popular. It's because, we have our agents and people that write for the website and, do workshops and teach and all that sort of thing. But in the end, there's so many people that are connected with the cosmic intelligence. So it's kind of open in that way. So therefore, that's why it's growing, and so many people are connecting with us. So it's wonderful. Exactly what it set out to do.
Yeah. Well, now, what year did you start the CIA?
Well, the name came to me in 2004. I bought the web name in 2005, and that's really interesting in itself because Facebook and Twitter started in 2005. So not that we started Facebook or Twitter then, but but it was there was a few astrological signatures like Neptune in Aquarius that started connecting the world through the internet, so our sort of focus of putting astrology out there has been a good part of that.
Wonderful.
Although we never got our first web page up, I think, till the end of 2006. So it was kind of a slow progress. I had it in my head, and then I told a few people, and some people said, "Oh, you're mad, Jules. Like, what are you doing?" And others said, "Oh, wow, that's a
all
great
the best
idea."
people are.
Yeah, that's right. Other people said, "Oh, you're starting a cult and you're going to get locked up." Man. I just, I just persevered, continued. I loved the whole idea. I'm actually a Pisces, so it really suits, not that secret world. We're not really doing anything secret, but it gives that sort of connotation that we can be involved and do our own thing as a collective without, let's say the authorities needing to know what we're up to. And that's part of it.
Absolutely. I love that, the whole premise there. And I think so many people, I think that's why people are so attracted to the idea of astrology and schools of thought outside of the, traditional schools of thought that we've all been, kind of brainwashed into. Walk this straight line. Here's the information you need to know. Here's what's real. Here's what's not. We're telling you from some authoritative, government overlords or something. And it's really not the way it is. We have access to so much information. And of course, astrology being one that has fascinated so many people and seems to be growing every single day. Now, with the site, I notice you use another play on the CIA, of course, Cosmic Intelligence Agency, and that's your website as well for the listeners, cosmicintelligenceagency.com. But you also have their consciousness, intention, and astrology. So those, I'm assuming, are the three foundations as far as the information that is on the site. Am I correct in assuming?
Definitely, and that came afterwards, like adding adding the CIA initials to the words, astrology. We first started our first web page with what we called intention mission, so that we wrote about the solstice and equinox points of astrology, twice a year, so 2 equinoxes, 2 solstices, and that was our aim, to actually unite thought, astrological thought at those moments in time, like, okay, this is about the next 6 months or the next 3 months. What can we put out there as a message? And so those words grew out of what we were actually physically doing, on the website.
Wow.
So we're raising consciousness to all astrological ideas, but with an intention behind it. It wasn't just, writing about this as the energies are, but more as a collective project. So it grew from the idea that astrology is so helpful for us on a personal level. So what can we do that, on the collective side? Because, it is part of the whole big shift that's happening with consciousness anyway, that we're becoming aware of so many other things. And, astrology can and has been playing a big role in that, I think. So that's what those 3 words came out from, I suppose. And it's just beautifully connected as well. So,
Makes all the sense in the world. Now, for those that don't know a lot about astrology, and I'm sure, we have all listeners that, cover the entire gamut, some who are very knowledgeable and have even, cast charts and so forth, and others who know nothing or little, about it aside from seeing, forecasts in the newspaper or what have you. How would you define the art of astrology? Would you consider it an art or a science or both? What can you
We usually
say about that?
understand it as a combination of both, because there is a science behind it. Like, Saturn's in a particular place in the sky at the moment. There's the science behind the difference between sidereal astrology, which is the constellational astrology, to what we understand as tropical astrology. You need to know the science behind what you're doing to understand what astrology is. So it's not just a pure art of interpretation, although that becomes the art. So from knowing the science, you can use the art. So it's one of these amazing tools that science is now kind of getting its head around, that there is this paradigm in all of science that exists in the mysterious realm, and it's the way that we interpret it, or that we as observers are observing what's happening. And astrology's always had that combination with it, and so yes, it's helped to explain so much about the unknown and why things happen. I suppose it's been projected into the sky through humanity and the worldview over the ages as well, to understand archetypes and worldviews and symbols, and it's all in there. It's so rich. So there's many ways to interpret it. I mean, I'm teaching astrology at the moment. I'm learning so much because there are specific things you have to teach, like to teach about the 10 planets or so and their specific archetypes. But when we start putting things together and the interpretations and what then an astrologer will see or intuit, I mean, that all comes into the whole personal story of what kind of astrologer you are as well. So there's a certain amount that is unified knowledge, and then a certain amount which becomes your own type of interpretation, let's say, because I certainly don't believe that there's only one particular way to see a chart or read a chart, or I mean, some astrologers will be like that, a bit more, let's say, traditional about it. Like this is a system that was devised by our ancient, ancient astrologers, and now we're messing with it because we're modern and we've
Right.
got new ideas and there's new paradigms approaching our thinking. And so, I mean, I've always seen astrology as more of the evolutionary type of aspect that moves with the times, that
Sure.
incorporates all the changing times as well, and it tells us about the changing times. So I'd prefer to use it that way than as
Yeah,
a
that
as a
makes the
model
most
that
sense to
never.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you take a look at any discipline or school of knowledge, it's always changing, it's always evolving, and so why would that not be the case with astrology?
Yeah.
And you know,
I mean, it's
and of
interesting.
course, sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, it is that Skype thing, isn't it, being cut off a bit? But
Yeah, we have a little bit of a delay sometimes. So,
yeah, yeah. No, no. Hang on. Sorry, where were we? Um,
well, what
yeah,
I
no,
was going to say was. What I was going to say, and this gives you time to recall where we were at before
yeah, yeah,
we
sure.
stumbled on each other, is, with astrology, it's something that really makes a lot of sense to me because if we're all connected, we all come from, I mean, literally, we're made of a star, stardust, right? A star that lived a full life cycle, burned out, exploded, was projected outwards, reformed as a planet. At one point, my mother came out of this, then I came out of this, and on it goes. And so it's all connected. It's all part of the same stuff. And we know there's no scientific debate that the moon affects a woman's, cycles and things like that. So,
Yeah,
it only makes
undeniable.
sense that yeah, it's undeniable. So it only makes sense that expands outwards and continues on,
Yeah, why does
for
it stop
all the
with the
planets
moon
and
or the
right,
tides?
exactly,
Exactly. So
exactly.
then, yeah, how far out do you go? Yeah, it seems to be, the effects of Jupiter. I mean, Jupiter's such an enormous planet, so that why can't that affect us? But then we're
Absolutely.
also working with things like Pluto, which is a tiny little rock miles
Sure.
away. But in astrology, it's just so important and influential. And if we what we say having a Pluto transit, we all really can feel that Pluto. So or we can
Right.
see that sort of not
Interesting.
not necessarily ruining someone's life, but transforming it very slowly. And that
Right.
is indeed happening. So it's really hard to explain why that is, so with something so far away, but it's in consciousness. It is in our
Right.
consciousness. So that's the secret thread in that sort of sense that can't be
Absolutely.
explained. Scientists can't
Absolutely.
explain consciousness. So
Yeah, it's hard enough to try and figure out what all the connections and so forth mean, and that of course has been happening for eons with astrologers that have come before you, and on it goes. Who knows how far back, right? Or maybe you even have an idea. I'm assuming it probably predates recorded history, and
yeah,
so
well, I would say so, but the traditional, let's say, texts that we have that have the first recorded tablets of astrological, movements or the phases of Venus or that kind of thing is from Babylon, so
okay,
4000 BC.
yeah,
But of course, it would have been around, ever
sure,
since we've
sure,
been looking up at the sky. The
right,
first things were the sun and the moon, and the sun and the moon are the most important, what we call luminaries of looking into astrology. The sun being, the solar force, and the moon, the changing light that, one's day and one's night. So, it's very primal symbolism as well. And then you add the planets. But
right,
they've been
right,
looking at them, since the beginning of time. So how do we know how that knowledge has been handed down? I think there's a lot more to be uncovered, I have to say, about that. I follow archaeologists like Graham Hancock with his
oh yeah,
discoveries,
yeah,
and they're digging up sites now that are 40,000 BC and that type of
right.
thing. So I think there's a lot more to come.
I
It's a
would say
sign
so.
of, yeah, it's a sign of what we'd say Neptune is in Pisces now, and Pluto is in Capricorn. So we're uncovering so many mysteries, but also, as far as we're digging, let's say, into the sky, like as sky archaeology, we're also digging underground. So it's a really interesting time. And so far, what we've known with the astrological history, no one would doubt that it goes a lot further back. I don't think. It's just that we haven't got it written down or told by anyone yet.
So that's a great bit of information, though. You're saying the main school of thought that you and people like yourself are working off of are dating back about 4,000 years.
Yeah, well, that's where we get our first, real information written down from Babylon.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very interesting. Now, how long have you been practicing astrology?
Well, I started studies in 1999, but it was something that was with me for a long time, and it just became something in my life that I said, okay, this is it. I've taught myself enough. Now I really have to get serious, and so I found the people I wanted to study with and stuff in Melbourne, and then I finished in 2005. So since then, I mean, it's been a kind of slow road. I came up with the CIA idea when I was finishing my studies, but having said finished your studies in astrology means nothing because you never stop.
Right. That was my next question. Yeah. Do you feel like your abilities and wisdom and so forth have grown exponentially as it plateaued off? I mean, how would you kind of compare that to a normal?
Yeah, look, as I say, it never stops, and there's so much astrology out there now. I have to say, I actually don't get time to read much new stuff. I'm so involved with the organising of our information, let's say.
Right.
So I'm always on top of what's going on now, more than I suppose reading new books. I've got books piled up near my bed that I never get to. That sort of thing.
Right.
I'd love to be able to. I'm having a holiday next week, so I will do a bit of catching up. But it's totally fascinating. There's great astrologers out there that are, putting out new information. Again, it never stops evolving. Researching a lot of old and traditional works. There's a lot of great astrology around for that reason now, in the sense of there's astrologers translating texts, like ancient texts in Arabic and Hebrew and that type of thing that haven't been done before, because translated texts were not translated by astrologers. So now that they're being translated by astrologers, we're actually, uncovering new techniques and, that type of stuff. So it's actually quite fascinating. So there's always something to keep up with.
Sounds like it.
So it never stops. It's a wonderful tool, insight, inspiration that, that really keeps you excited, I have to say.
Absolutely.
In so many ways.
One of my questions for you is, and I'm sure each person has their own techniques and so forth, as you've went along and as you've, practiced, now going on, 20 years, it sounds like, close to it, do you feel like you use intuition as a part of the process? Or is that something that, has developed over time, or how does that work?
I think what I suppose most significantly changed, and you do, I suppose, let's say go through your own kind of crises as you're becoming an astrologer, because what you go through is, like, you see some incredible correlations, synchronicities that you just go, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is just like, so to overcome the overwhelming sort of part of it, that it just becomes not I don't want to use the word normal, but that, it's the acceptance of how amazing it is part of just, chilling out and going, yeah, well, it's not that it's not amazing. It's just that, yes, this is happening, and it's as strong and as deep, and as what do you call it, informative as it always has been.
Yeah.
So it's our own sort of way of coping and taking in that information and then knowing what to do with it. So a job of an astrologer is also to know how to interpret that for someone, to give them the best sort of avenues to understand what they're going through, instead of that sort of, I'm not a predictive astrologer, although that comes into it because you've got timing. The best thing about astrology is that you've got a time, you're looking at time cycles and they're right in front of you so that okay, this is happening around then, this is happening in August. And it prepares people. And it also takes them back to cycles that have been and come before to help them understand what this one's about. So there's sort of so many levels, but as going back to what you just asked, is the main process I've gone through is trusting the astrology. It's not doubting it. It's like using it as a sacred tool, and it's full of information, and it's full of all the information that you might need at a particular time. So it's about becoming, well, for me, it has been about, let's say, honoring the sacred within the astrology that we're looking at. So it's not something frivolous or, it's hilarious sometimes. I mean, you can have a lot of fun with it as well. I can't doubt that. But, some of the things that occur, or just when clients come to see you at a particular crisis in life, it's exactly there. It's exactly, like the textbooks would tell you, you're having a Saturn transit,
Right.
And it never ceases to amaze that their story is that at that time. So, as what we call the generic transits that we all go through, and then the personal ones, they're also linked in and tied in. That's what we get to know as an astrologer. We can look at a chart and we can, I remember, with my teacher, Brian Clark, who was in Melbourne, I was always in awe of, like, how does he know that? How does he, remember those dates or that timing for that cycle and stuff? But that's what we become. That's what we are. We look at a chart and we know where everything is from the outside. We know everything, where it's going, where it's been, and you just get to know it. So that's, it's not just a simple study like, some people might think, that's crazy, that stuff, but we do really study it, and we get obsessed. That's the other thing. You get really obsessed for a while.
That's when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, well, then you sort of takes over your life for a while, and you think, oh gosh, I've got to switch off. So it's learning to use that sort of balance point, I think, that you move through, but it probably takes quite a while for most of us.
Sure. That makes total sense. I mean, like I said, when you're doing something that is your calling and you're meant to do, it's definitely blurs the line between work and fun, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. It's a great job, I have to say.
Yeah, I have to say what you've chosen to do is pretty fascinating to me, and that's why I wanted to have you on. And I'm really excited because you were kind enough to offer to actually demonstrate for those of you who've never had a reading or seen an astrological reading or know nothing of it besides reading a predictive blurb in the newspaper. Julija has been very, very kind to acquire my date of birth, time of birth, city, where geographical location, and those, you take that information, and that's how you can actually cast a chart. And correct me if I'm saying anything wrong here. You cast a chart based off of what the sky looked like above my geographical birth location at the exact moment of birth. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep, that's right. So these days we have computers to do that, but we did have to learn to do that by, with a pencil and ephemeris and, charts and stuff. And we still teach that in astrology so that students can become aware of, what we're actually doing, to come up where all the planet positions and all that type of thing. Because computer programs, it makes it so easy now. Like anyone can be an astrologer. They might not have had to learn all of that, but it's important to know the basis of what we're doing.
Sure. If it's going to be your craft, it makes all the sense in the world that you would have some idea, an idea at least, of how the computers are simulating or casting the charts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, so I've got yours right in front of me. How much do you want me to tell people?
You know what? You tell as much as you feel, makes sense. And I would love to, hear everything that you have to offer and what you see. I've actually did have an astrological chart cast maybe, I don't know, about 16 years or so ago. So it's something that was a really interesting experience for me then. And I'm really excited to kind of hear what you have to say.
Yeah, okay. Well, firstly, I mean, you probably remember a few of the classic, signatures, that the main things that we look in a chart is what was rising in the east when you were born. So the rising sign, often called.
Right.
And yours rising sign is Sagittarius. Okay.
Okay. I did not recall that actually.
You don't
but
remember that? Okay. So you're
I didn't.
Sagittarius rising, which gives you a very open spirit, a very, the Sagittarius, the archer, is the one that shoots the arrow into the universe to find out more about it.
Oh, wow.
To find out about, more information. More information. He's a cosmic traveler, information gatherer, and that's the ascendant represents how we kind of step out of bed every day and our attitude to life and living. Okay, so
is it true? Is it true? Not sorry to cut you off, but is it true? One thing I have heard about rising sign, and I'd forgotten that Sagittarius was mine. I think I did hear that at one point, long time ago.
Yeah.
But is it true that sometimes that particular sign represents more of how you come off to the world than even your sun sign, which is the typical sign you think of?
It's quite often the most apparent part of you, so that, one of the things that we get asked as astrologers is, when we go out to a party or something, oh, you're an astrologer, so guess who I am? Guess my sign, guess my sign, and it's always the biggest test. And quite often you'll guess the rising sign because, although that person won't know what their rising sign is because it's what they look like. So
right.
it represents or shows, the kind of spirit that a person has got. So they, their hair, the way, how high, tall or high they are. Sagittarius would represent something big about you. Doesn't necessarily mean as in, high or, some big people can be really short. So your personality's big. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got a big personality. Would you say that about yourself?
I would say I've heard that a time or two in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm definitely not shy.
Yeah. There you go. So it makes you, you're a fun person, generally sort of out there doing lots of things, and confident and proud. And it's a fire sign. So it's all about seeking and gathering and sharing information. And so you're doing that though as well. Anyway, so that's a simple
So the description of Sagittarius, and particularly wanting to seek out information and learn more information about the ultimate nature of reality. I mean, here we are on this podcast, so I think that says it all, right?
So then the other two important things are the sun and the moon. So the position of the sun and the moon. So your sun's in Leo. So that gives you the warmth and the spirit, and again, and more fire in your chart to do things that you love, things that are important to your heart. That's what guides you. That's what your spirit is. You cannot do something that goes against that grain. I mean, that's true for most of us, but the Leo sun for you very, very much represents that you've got to have a life that, you love. You're not going to do stuff that maybe over your lifetime, that's been your challenge, is to overcome things and move out of things that were expected of you to actually come out into your own, let's say.
Absolutely.
But it's in the ninth house. So the ninth house is representative of, again, a very Sagittarian type of zone, which is the ninth house is all about higher learning, higher education, universal principles, international quests, let's say, travel, international travel. So your sun is in that position. So here you are. I mean, I'm talking to you from the other side of the world. We're doing an international thing.
I was just in Australia, actually.
Oh, were you as well?
Yeah, I was.
So in order to honor your sun, it's to do it in a ninth house way. So you're going to love being internationally connected, doing things that involve, being connected to someone in Melbourne right now, writing about universal laws and principles. That's your heart belongs to that.
Absolutely.
I suppose it would have been, I don't know, do you have some degrees in your life? I'm sure that you've studied things in the past.
I do have a degree that I've never really used, but I have a degree in computer science with a minor in business management, and So yeah, upon graduation, a few months before graduation, I figured, what am I going to do with this wonderful degree? I know, I'll form a band and move to California and try and make it in the music business. Makes sense, right?
That wasn't fun enough, was it? Yeah, that's right. It wasn't fun enough.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't never really do much with it. Well, the business part of it. I've been a serial entrepreneur, my whole life since I was, 10 years old. And so I have used that aspect of it. But yes, learning this type of information, picking people's brain like yours, learning about astrology, learning about metaphysical subject matters, and things like that are fascinating to me. So it's much more so than, I guess, a traditional. Yeah, much more so than a traditional, kind of schooling structure. I'm definitely outside the box as far as that goes.
Okay, well, there's a reason. There's more of a reason why you're outside of the box, and that's now your moon. Remember, there's three main parts of your astrology chart. So ascendant, your sun, and your moon. So now your moon is in Libra, and it's in the 11th house, as we call it, the 11th house. So the moon represents how we sort of ebb and flow through life. So it very much picks up, what we perceive about our environment, how we take things in, how we were, how we love, how we were nurtured. It's quite a complex creature, let's say, the moon. So it takes in, it's how we absorb everything. So it's very important in that sense. And in Libra, it's like a peacemaker. It prefers harmony to disharmony. It will seek out experiences like, that bring that to you, let's say, or quite often it can be quite the opposite. Like the challenge is that I don't belong here because it hasn't got the harmony that I want to live with. So you're always seeking that sort of balance in life, and very fair. Libra moon people are very fair about things, and so probably good people to deal with, that type of thing. And then, there's a bit of a clincher. The moon is very close to what we call the agent of change. And this is, again, now, brings up the principles of what you're guided by, the agent of change, Uranus. So the planet Uranus, which is, as we know, the wild card as well, the planet that represents new inventions, technology, shocks to the system, the rebellious type. So in you, there's this spirit as well that wants to do things that aren't the norm, that want to, were you a radical child?
I was not a radical child. I was always fairly well behaved, but
okay. Well, that's the
fiercely independent, and have always had my own ideas about how things should be, and very often quick to speak out against, hold on, everyone does it this way, and this makes no sense, and we're all doing it this way because the people before us did it this way, and the people before it did it this way. But I look at it with my brain and say, doesn't even make sense. Here's a better way, and I'm going to do it this way regardless of what anyone thinks.
So you've got your own way of doing things, and that makes you quite unique. You're not the same as anybody else. I mean, that can be true for most of us as well, hopefully.
Sure.
But more so. So you stand out in that sense that you don't follow any particular path or that type of thing. You're very much you like to be inspired. On the move, let's say, changeable, and that goes very much with it. And then when you put that with the Sagittarius kind of influence, which is your ascendant and then your sun in the 9th, we have someone that's that is doing what you do, I suppose, at the moment, is channeling information out, through the web, through podcasts. That's very Uranian, all that internet. Let's say communicating, okay, and you're just a natural at it. You picked it up, like you said. You were, you studied science major or whatever it was. Technology or something, computers, and that computers are very, you're just a natural at that. So you're picking up on all the things that that your signature shows. But another really interesting thing now, another big part of our astrology charts is anything that, especially if we're focusing on what career we should be doing, that type of thing, is looking at the midheaven. So like the ascendant, meaning what was rising when we were born, the midheaven represents what was at the top of the sky when we were born, okay? And you've got the planet Mercury there. So Mercury is in Virgo. Your midheaven is Leo, meaning that it accentuates that sun sign for you and the importance of doing something that warms the planet, let's say. With your own personality, you can warm up the planet, okay? That's your job as a Leo. But
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, the Mercury there is the communicator. So it's the most important planet in the sense of who you're becoming and what you will follow. So Mercury, you're the communicator. You're the one that's putting information together. So he's another information seeker, but in a different way than Sagittarius or Jupiter, which is your ruling planet. But Mercury was known as the trickster planet that can, change our minds quickly, that it represents the mind, how we think and how we communicate. And so you're a communicator. So is your task. That is your job. So the way that everything else comes together, and Mercury in Virgo is very attuned to, again, let's say, the healing of the planet. So the reasons that you're communicating all of this is in some way to help and heal and, do good.
Definitely my intention.
It's like being of service. Your Mercury's in service. Not being serviced, but of service.
Right. I can relate to that for sure.
Service, I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Cool.
Yeah. So, there's a lot more. There's a lot more in your astrology chart, of course. There, I've just picked up on the main things to help your listeners understand how important it is. On the CIA site, we encourage, just the way that we write our posts and stuff. We're more focused on, telling people or writing about what's happening in the sky at the time. And the way that we're helping people is, if you can understand your astrology chart somehow and then get to know how things move around it, follow transits in your own chart and life, then, what you're reading will make so much more sense.
Sure.
So we do encourage people to grab a copy of their own astrology chart and just start. Like, it might seem quite daunting, but you can just start, maybe get a reading with an astrologer at some point, and get the basics, and then you can start following your own. So it's not as hard as you think, although it is very involved, and just starting is that's what we like to promote. Like, get into it.
Absolutely.
It's a good idea.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Sorry.
I was going to say, and you actually provide some education and so forth through the CIA site, correct?
We do classes. I do online classes at the moment. Yes, we do. You can get your own free astrology chart from our site as well. Again, many other websites have that as well. But yeah, the astrology classes online are going great. And this way you can teach, you can teach at a particular time in Melbourne, but the classes are taped, and then, the rest of the class gets it later in the day. So it's very handy. It's a really good way that I suppose we couldn't do that before. Correspondence is a bit different because you're not really meeting the teacher much. You're just getting a whole bunch of notes sent to you. So online webinars are a great platform for that. So I just started that earlier this year for online, and
cool.
Yeah, people are loving it. So anyway, so if you're interested, get in touch, of course.
Yeah. Cosmic Intelligence Agency.com. That's a mouthful.
That's right. So, Brandon, I'm looking at what, in regard to your astrology, I'm looking at what's happening now in the sky.
Okay.
So transit-wise, that type of thing. And you're going, like, the biggest thing that you're going through right now is that Saturn is on your Neptune, okay?
Okay.
Now, Neptune is the planet of inspiration, of understanding, mysteries, unified fields. We can put it towards that. So your Neptune's at 0 degrees of Sagittarius, okay? And Saturn is there right now as we do this reading, and it's moving back into Scorpio. So it's almost like wherever you are right now, in the next couple of weeks, we're going back to a land or a realm that we were in last year up until December, end of November last year. So if you can remember, last year and even the year before, because Saturn was in Scorpio, so it was kind of, whatever was happening at that time of your life then is coming back. I don't want to say to haunt you, but if there's something that's been not completely finalized, or you sort of things moved on too fast and I haven't redone that. I mean, it could be to do with your business and how things are growing. It's like, going back and crossing the I's and dotting the T's, and a few things, not so much that you forgot, but just to perfect it a bit more, there
was a big transition for me two Novembers ago.
Okay, all right. Well, that's when Saturn first moved into Scorpio. Okay, so it became things became serious very quickly.
It was the end of a year and a half relationship, and interestingly enough, there's some bit of unresolved aspect to that relationship, and I have very recently tried to resolve that without success. The person is just unwilling to kind of communicate, which for me, being the communicator that I am, it's everything to just talk through things and create resolution. And this person has, that I still love and care for deeply, has, refused to do so. And so it's interesting that you say that, I think of November, and that's, exactly when it happened. And,
so there's chance of that being resolved. I mean, Saturn's a slow mover, so as it dips back into Scorpio, it will be there for about 4 or 5 months, I think. So there is this sort of chance of resolution there, or in your own personal sense, just do the best you can to get that resolved, because then you can move on better and freer, after that. Otherwise, so the timing of things is great to watch in astrology. And then, I've always thought, there's an overlap between modern astrology and psychology, of course, so that we in our learning we understand the way someone's Mars works, or what sign it's in, as a psychological sort of aspect of how they're motivated and that type of thing, so that in more what we have, let's say, on top of it, psychology, I have to say, as astrologers, is that we've got timing.
Right.
As I was saying before, like a psychologist will say, okay, well, you need 6 more sessions with me. This is a deep therapy. We need to get through this. There's a lot going on. But with astrology, it's like, well, no, that will be over in September. And we see it, like people will get back in contact, and you say, it's exactly how you said. It will be over in September. And that just happens all the time. So it's totally fascinating. And that's what I was saying before about trusting the astrology. But you have to have done it for a long time to be able to say that. Do you know what I mean? That I trust that will be over, or it's happened, or, there will be a resolution in that timing. So, so constantly sort of amazing in that sense. What else is the main thing? So just quickly, I mean, this thing right now is like you're building a dream. Let's say Saturn and Neptune coming together is putting together, structuring the dream. Okay, however hard it might actually feel right now, it's like continue, persevere. You will be amazed of where you'll be, in 6 months' time, or that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's really sort of saying, don't give up. As Saturn transits are always very difficult and hard and make you work harder, and you just don't give up. But then it's like, don't give up the dream, and really sculpt the dream. And what that is, what that is for you right now, Brandon. So, and then you've got some great stuff coming up with Jupiter. Jupiter's been transiting your, as we say, 9th house. So it moved over your sun over the last year, or since July last year. It's moved over your sun. It's been moving through Leo, so therefore your 9th house of international connections, and as I was talking about before, what you're made for doing. Okay, so that's been a positive sort of leap forward, like I
left the day-to-day in July, day-to-day operations of the company that I founded about 5 years ago to start down this road.
Wow.
Here. So yeah, you're right on with your timing there.
Yeah,
so.
okay. So perfect. Yeah, perfect timing. So now that journey continues, it's almost, oh my gosh, like what have I started? So the ball keeps rolling, and then Jupiter moving over what we call the midheaven, where I talked about where Mercury was for you. Jupiter in the 10th house journey then becomes one very much, about the career that you've devoted yourself to. Okay, so bringing in some good blessings. Let's say keep the faith is one of the words that we use for Jupiter. Keep the faith, keep it honest, keep it true, and there's no reason it should work. Yeah, okay, there you go. Well, that's also Sagittarius rising and the sun in the 9th, which you're good at Jupiter. Let's say you're good with Jupiter. Okay, so keep that going, and it all should take off. A lot more exciting than perhaps it has been for a while as well.
I definitely sense that momentum in a big, big way. There's so many amazing things that are developing and on the horizon, and that have been years and years of putting energy and keeping the faith into, and belief and intention, and it's one of those things where I can just see so many things even happening at once. So I can definitely relate to that from where I'm sitting and how I feel about what's going on.
Yeah, and then you feel like, oh gosh, this is what you can feel it. It feels good because you're doing the right thing for yourself, and
absolutely.
And the only thing you got to watch with Jupiter transits is that you're taking in too much. There's too much happening and I can't handle it all. Whoa.
Yeah.
The ride is getting too big, and I know a lot of people that it's exciting, but it's like how whoa, how do I rein it in? I can't actually do everything.
You can do anything, you can't do everything.
And that's exactly it. So that's just the message for the Jupiter transit. But it's a good one. It's a good ride. Jupiter we assign to like the tarot card of the Wheel of Fortune, right? So you're kind of climbing up and it's all exciting, but there are times of life that you go down. But in this position in your chart, it's actually a good one. Like you're going up, up, up. All right.
I love that.
You don't need to know when it's going down. Well, not for a while anyway. I mean, there's many things happening at once in that sense. Okay. So, so it's pretty good. What else is there that's most important? Well, they're about the major things. I probably don't want to confuse the issues too much at the moment. Oh, hang on. One more thing. In August this year, one of the major transits that's happening, and this will be affecting everyone out there somehow because of where Leo is in anybody's astrology chart. And that's because Venus is going to do her retrograde cycle. And Venus doesn't do that as often as Mercury. Mercury does it 3 times a year, and we've all heard about Mercury retrograde and, kind of ruining plans Infamously. Or changing things. And yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, Venus does it, in a different way. She's retrograde for 40 days and 40 nights, which is where the stories of retreating into the desert and that type of thing come from. Yeah.
Wow, that's an astrological reference. I had no idea. How fascinating.
Yeah. There's many, many, many of them that you would not, you just think it comes from the Bible or, some kind of story, religious story. But many of those, like astrology was around before all of those stories.
Well, even with the 3 wise men, right? They were they were watching the heavens and
and that's
for Saul,
following
that great prophet. Yeah.
There's many, many theories about that one, so I won't get into that.
Yeah. It's a whole nother podcast, right?
Yeah, it's another one. But anyway, Venus then sort of does her turnaround in the sky, let's say. And so she's going to spend 4 months in Leo. And so wherever Leo is for anybody in their chart is like quite a significant, have a really good look at what's going on for you in that point of your chart. Now, so for you, that's happening in what we call in the top of your chart. So as I was talking about, it starts off conjunct your Mercury, your communicator that I was talking about, and then it moves back to not completely your sun, but in that zone of, where you're heading, what your goals are. So it's a bit of not a warning, but in a sense, again, what I said about Jupiter, if you go too fast, too quickly, things could, not go the way that you want, or that, trying to do too much. So it's almost like easing you up to say,
Gotcha.
okay, now Brandon, just hold your horses a bit,
Yeah.
get the plans a bit more gathered, take a bit more
Right.
time with stuff. It's 40 days and 40 nights is not going to rule. Do you know what I mean? Like, just do things a bit slower, maybe
Gotcha.
rest your mind, like just make a few more plans or something.
Interesting. And that's in August.
Yeah, it's starting on July the 25th till till the end of August or beginning of September. Okay.
Interesting. The ex I just referenced in the November thing, that's her birthday.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you might get some message that because Venus is also the goddess of relationships as well.
Interesting.
So maybe it's got to do with some kind of money as well. Venus can have a connection to money in the sense of our values. Like, if she owes you money or something, then, it's your own sort of self-value that's not going to say, oh, okay, just have it. You need to get back what's deservedly yours, that type of thing. I mean, I'm not sure if that's going on, but it's that kind of stuff. No,
nothing like that.
So,
nothing like that.
But Venus, retrograde meaning going back over her steps. So there's something to go back over, and maybe even just your grand ideas and grand visions. Okay, the major plans. Maybe there's some that have to actually go by the wayside because you're using up too much energy. Do you know what I mean? On going to some things that might not take off. So we're a bit of a review in that sort of sense. Okay,
awesome.
In the big picture, a review of the big picture. That's what I'd call it.
Right. Okay. I like that.
So that's probably that's enough fodder to keep you going now for a while.
Definitely, I appreciate that so much. That's so fascinating and interesting, and I'm sure for my listeners, I hope that's that taste of what it is that Julija does was interesting and intriguing to you, and I hope if so, you will go and get a chart reading from Julija yourself on her website because, it's really fascinating. I mean, you might as well, life is challenging enough without all the information. So when you can have an idea of what kind of your natural inclinations are, or even a validation, it feels really good. It feels really good to hear those things when you say, hey, here's how you're structured. So here's what you should be doing. And it's like, okay, there is a reason for my madness, right? It's like I was built this way, right? So
it gives you a big tick and saying it's okay to be you. Go off,
exactly,
it's fine.
Exactly.
That's right. And so we need that now and then, yeah.
Absolutely. And then with a little sprinkling of, hey, here's what you can kind of expect, and so when things do pop up, when I'm next August scratching my head saying, what am I supposed to be doing? I know I'll reflect back on this and say, okay, this is a meant to be moment of reflection. So this is a good thing. So I think it's a really, really helpful tool. And I really appreciate you taking the time and, putting in the effort to put that together for me. That was very, very kind and awesome.
No problem. No, that's great.
So I want to get to a few more issues here, or topics. Maybe not issues. That sounds like there's a problem. A few more discussion elements I'm very curious about. So as far as with the site itself, your site, Cosmic Intelligence Agency, you have CIA agents. And I looked into it just a little bit, but I thought that was really clever too. So what can you tell me about that? I mean, how many of those are there? What are their roles? Are they all astrologers as well? How does that play into your whole, vision?
Yeah, well, look, it started off with, we need lots of agents. We need people everywhere. And that would still be a great idea. Like, we need an agent in every city, that kind of thing. Most of us are astrologers. Most of us are astrologers, and that's just because of the, let's say, feeding the information on the website and stuff, and then the work we do as workshops and, that kind of thing, and connecting ourselves around the world. But we have had, people join up and we never hear from them again. Like, even though they get the emails like everyone else.
They're a secret agent.
So in the end, we don't know what they're doing and how they're representing us or something. I mean, we are a bit careful in the sense, like, if we're going to give, it's just all a bit of fun as well. Like, we give someone a number. We don't want them, doing awful stuff out there, so
Right,
we
right.
have a bit of, there's a few people I've had to say no to because they sound completely wacky,
Right.
so I don't know what they're going to do to become that CIA agent, of ours, and then, give us a
Right.
bad name or something. So we have to
Sure,
be a
sure.
little bit careful.
A little selective,
I
yeah.
did sort of go through this phase where I thought, I wish, more astrologers would join up and, join in on this. But you know what? We actually invite, or not, we invite some people, but we attract the right people, and that's what's
Sure.
been happening. So instead of sort of really promoting it in that kind of sense, the right
Let it
people
happen
come to us
organically.
at the right
Yeah.
time, and
Beautiful.
it's all about sort of finding something and how you can be involved with what we do. Although that's not necessary, some people are there as just more as benefactors, and they pay their sort of yearly fee type of thing just to have their names on our website and stuff. Others write for us, and always looking for new great writers. And I'm hoping to actually expand our website into more information on consciousness as opposed to just astrology and that type of thing. So there's room for a lot of creative
Great.
projects. So it's all about, I always say, the agency is as good as the agents that are current at any particular time. So, and some of them
Right.
come and go again. Some we never hear from again. I don't know. Agent 43 bought his badge and said he'd do this and that, and we never heard from him again. So
Oh man,
it's the
too
real
top
James Bond
secret.
thing.
Hey, that's so funny.
No, it is. Again, but it's good to have a few good agents and many sort of, let's say, ones that don't do much. So I've
Yeah.
always sort of come through with this thing, like, if you've got something you can contribute or start a blog or, get involved somehow, then we welcome everybody. If you can come up with an idea, that's great. But, there's someone already writing on the full moon, so we don't need 10 people writing on that. Do you know what I mean? But there's
Right.
room for a lot of stuff. Yeah, for sure. So
Now
we keep it pretty open.
Cool. You mentioned that it's all a network of individuals living around the world who share a vision of the world soul, or the Anima Mundi. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir. Anima Mundi. Yep.
The Anima Mundi. Tell us a little bit about what that means.
Okay, well, it's an ancient Latin word. I think it was first, written by Plato. And the Anima Mundi, the world soul, is an understanding that, I suppose it's that original idea of, that our thoughts and intentions and the way that everything is moving around us is actually all part of us, that we're participating in this whole movement. And then so when we look at that in a more modern context and then add the astrology into it, it just made so much sense to me. And that's how we see this living, let's say, breathing astrology. It's always, it's moving around us. It's telling us what's happening. It's us participating with what's going on. Okay, so we're not separate from that, and that's the whole idea of the Anima Mundi. That we're connected. The soul is connected everywhere, through the planets, through the trees, through the wind, through the food, everything. So that the more that we live in that sort of, with that idea, it's actually, it's quite beautiful and sacred, and it's about honoring all those movements and phases of life and time and that type of thing. So
I love that.
So it started from that, the idea of the Anima Mundi, which was the moving astrology chart, the transits, as we write about on, the CIA, and encourage people to understand what's going on at any particular time, from a full moon to a new moon to an equinox to an eclipse. It's gathering all of us with that intention that we belong as one, as one. And the more of us that are aware of that can actually, without really knowing
shift the vibration on the planet.
Yes, shift the vibration. And there's a lot of us doing that, together. So astrology is like, I always thought, well, it's such a powerful tool because, a full moon, yes, a new moon, all of those things, many people know about that without the astrology involved. But, the astrology and the timing, you can pin, there's much more information in there, let's say, for all of us, and what we're actually intending. So it is. I mean, that was what we started with, and it's grown to probably be, a bit more beyond that now, but that's fine.
I love that. Yeah, I'm fond of saying the only rule or law that we need to live by is the law of oneness. All is literally one, act accordingly. What else do you need to know?
Yeah.
And so that makes me think of that with your explanation. So that's a beautiful thing. And I was never, I was not familiar with that term. So that was really interesting to me too.
It's used in a lot of places, really. I first, well, again, reading astrological texts and stuff, I can't remember how I came across it, but it really sort of struck a chord and resonated. Like, yeah, it's the world soul. It's like animating, anima meaning moving world soul. It's not stuck in one place. It's not stuck in how it should be. It's
Right.
like you were saying before about dogma and religion and all that kind of stuff. It's a world soul that's constantly alive and vibrating, and we're all
sort of like the concept of Gaia.
Yeah.
Right.
That it's living and breathing around us all the time. So, yeah, no, it's a beautiful kind of idea, and I probably should do more, not write more about it at some stage. That's what I find really hard at the moment, is actually finding time.
Sure, yeah. You can do anything, you just can't do everything.
Yes.
So, do you have a favorite ancient astrologer or civilization or book that you would recommend to people who are interested in learning more about this fascinating subject matter?
Oh, wow, an ancient one. Oh, gosh, that's interesting.
I'm just throwing, it could be an ancient astrologer, civilization, a book. I mean, anything, any kind of, information that you could point to.
Well, this one's more of a modern book, but I suppose it's generally a great book for people that are interested in astrology or knowing more of its history and knowing how much it's been connected to so many things in the past that we would not have even thought of. And you think, oh my gosh, Newton was an astrologer, Kepler, so many famous, big names, Copernicus, all of it. We can look back in those times and go, wow, astrology has really inspired so many amazing things in the world. And one of the books, it's probably about 5-8 years old now. It's called The Fated Sky by a Benson Bobrick, and it's easily available, and probably about $20 or whatever. But that is a really good, insightful book just to people that are interested in astrology to show how rich a tradition it actually is, without, it's a history book, okay? So,
right. Wonderful.
But a fascinating one. I love that. I recommend it to my students as well. For someone that wants to know, let's say, more of a really deep an understanding of astrology, but this is now a very thick volume, called Cosmos and Psyche by a historian and astrologer, Richard Tarnas. And he looks back at the cycles of the planets over time. Oh, my cat just put the music on. Shit.
Hey, the cat just wanted some background music. I can understand that.
She's sleeping right on the keyboard at the other computer just here. She loves to sit on it. Right. So anyway, sorry.
No problem.
So so this book, Cosmos and Psyche, took Richard 10 years to write, or 20, I think, actually 20 years to write.
Wow.
So there's so much research in there, but he looks back at historical eras and looks at the main, let's say, planetary alignments of a particular time to help us understand the worldview that was changing and evolving through history, and then looking at astrological sort of timeframes within that, and that's totally fascinating. But that's a big read. That's a thick book.
Okay.
But,
well, and maybe one more to throw out there. Maybe one more to throw out there that is like a really intro beginner's guide to reading charts and things like that.
An intro guide. Oh, one of my favorite books, and this is one I recommend to my students, is Mythic Astrology by Ariel Gutman. And that is, a classic beginner's text. It goes through the 12 signs. It goes through all the planets and the archetypes, the histories, the myth, and easy to read, and some pictures and stuff. It goes through some of the asteroids. So you get a really good basis of the archetypal world of astrology, and that's what we have to start with to understand what you're working with. It's got no technical stuff or anything in there. That's another thing.
Right.
That's another thing. I think you have to start with that to see if you're going to like it first. And
Sure.
I think, so many, and in the end, astrology is about telling our story and living our story.
Sure.
Like the ongoing life of yours and telling the story, understanding the story, getting involved with the story. So the stories are important.
Wonderful. So what do you think about and this is a subject that's near and dear to my own heart, the spiritual awakening that has been predicted by, many ancient civilizations, such as the Mayans, about the time period after 2012 and so forth. And I'm curious, from an astrological perspective, what do the stars have to say about that?
Well, there was quite a lot going on at the time. This whole 2012, the 21st of the 12th, 2012 being the solstice. I did it. I'm trying to remember it all then, but.
Well, and from my understanding, it's kind of like that's the beginning of a cycle. And I guess I'm just curious if you noticed any kind of big change
it's the beginning
connections.
Of a huge cycle. So when you're looking at the solstice sun aligning with the what do you call it, the dark void of the Milky Way, then it's been coming for a while. So, it might have peaked in 2012, but it's been coming for a while. Okay.
Right.
So a shift in directions and, another big cycle. There's smaller cycles that we can look at. It depends how far you want to go. I think that it's sort of invited a whole new era in the sense of maybe it's not as, a huge a cycle as we think. It's a cycle of like 120 years or so. If you remember in 2012, we had the very rare, what we call the Venus transit in June 2012, where Venus crosses the disk of the sun. Okay. And that's a very rare transit. It happened in 2004, but then also only happened in like 120 years before. And I did some research on that whole transit cycle, and what became very interesting was that it seems to sort of usher in different eras of time. And so the last time it ushered in an era of 120 years ago was the transit happened in in Sagittarius, and this time it happened in Gemini. So anyway, I'll just quickly explain what that is. In Sagittarius, we get sort of bigger and better than ourselves, like it was the dawn of imperialism and building skyscrapers and, man sort of, being overtaking nature, let's say, like with his conquests and the imperialist age and that type of thing. And then 120 years later, we get the transit in Gemini, and we're getting a review of that. Like, what are we doing? We're doing it wrong. Gemini is very much about being aware and taking in new ideas and new projects and new beginnings. Not new beginnings so much, but, a new understanding. Whereas in Sagittarius, it's almost like we already know what we're doing. Like, it's like, I don't care, get out of the way. This is what I do. So in the smaller cycles, I think it's much more important for us to understand the smaller ones, because the larger ones are like, how do we get connected to that?
Right.
I mean, on a personal or more collective level, like again, in 120 years' time, we're not going to be here. But of course, yes, we can leave, the legacies and everything that we're doing is still important.
Well, maybe with all the developments in science and technology, who knows? You may just be here, Julija.
You never know. Or I'll be back.
Yeah, exactly. Or that.
Or something like that.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
So there's many ways to look at it, but I definitely agree. I mean, you can see it all around. The internet, our connectivity has all been part of that.
Sure.
I think we're actually still only in the baby stages. There's a few big things coming up, like in 2020, with the new cycle of Saturn and Jupiter beginning in Aquarius, which is really interesting. So, in a way, technology and invention can very much save us from being dependent on resources and that type of thing, for the planet.
I saw something recently, and I forget where I saw it, saying that there was a 7-year cycle from 2015 to 2020, 2022. Yeah. And so a 7-year like manifestation period. And I found that idea pretty intriguing. And I don't know if you've ever seen or heard anything about that.
You've probably heard about the Pluto-Uranus square that's been around for the last couple of years. Like every astrologer's written about it. It's about, breaking through to a new system, a new paradigm, but also the hardship of breaking through that. So it's Pluto in Capricorn where the system really has to change, and the square really indicates the challenge of new energy is right in front of us, but it's not used because the system won't allow it. That kind of thing. But we know that there's free energy and all that type of stuff. But the square indicates the difficulty of not being able to, let's say, utilize everything as much as we'd like to right now.
Sure.
But in the next few years, that starts to dissipate. And as Uranus then, it's in Aries at the moment, so we're full of big ideas, hot ideas, let's say. We've got the revolutionary urge inside of us, but there's not all that much we can do about it. Although, we are doing things, in our own time and slowly. But once Uranus gets into Taurus now is about grounding energy and being able to manifest. So that's maybe what whoever you were reading about was talking about. That therefore we'll have Pluto in Capricorn and Uranus in Taurus, and we'll see some of this, really quite grounded, all these big ideas that we've got
start to take hold.
To take hold. And interestingly, a lot of really amazing scientists like hang on, if I quote that Tesla has Uranus in Taurus, I might be wrong, but there's that energy that, being able to ground the big ideas, and put them down and
like
make
Nikola
something
Tesla
happen.
type ideas that you're referring to.
That's what I was thinking of. But so that kind of thing. So that's quite exciting.
Yeah, very. Okay, cool. Well, this has been really, really fascinating, learning more about astrology. And like I said, I really appreciate you doing the reading for me. Now to kind of move on for the end of the show here, my go-to question, which is, as you probably know, I am fascinated with the idea of synchronicity or stories of serendipity, positive paranormal stories. I've had a lot that have really steered me in at key times in my life, and really kind of amazing happening. So I always like to pick the brain of whoever I'm interviewing or having a discussion with, because oftentimes I find that someone like yourself probably has some sort of, magical story that you can share. And if you do, we'd love to hear about it.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a few. Actually, I just thought of another one besides the one
share any that you feel are...
told you earlier. Okay.
Share them both if you like.
Well, the first one's quite short, but
okay.
Do you remember the TV show called Get Smart from the 60s?
I know of it. I did not watch it because I wasn't around. But
it was all about a secret agency that was what do you call it?
You would know all about that one.
Fighting the world of chaos, okay? Like
right.
the opposition or the bad guys were called Chaos, and then the agency that Maxwell Smart and Agent 99 worked for were for the company called Control, okay? So there was Control and Chaos. It was a hilarious show. Anyway, when I did the research or had started the CIA, I went to the first conference with T-shirts, or not to my first conference, but it was in Sydney, and I took the T-shirts up to the some of the agencies, the first printing that we had. This is in 2008, and we got our rooms, we got our what do you call it? Yeah, we got our rooms and went to the hall, to the wings that we had our room, and I said, meet me in my room later. I'm in the Langley wing. And I didn't really kind of put together, the word Langley. Anyway, I went to my room and the guys sort of came in and one of them said, "Hey, Jules, Langley, does that ring a bell?" And I'm going, "Langley? Oh, I don't know." "Oh, yeah." And so Langley in Virginia is where
that's where I'm from.
CIA. Oh, is it? Where's where you're from?
I'm from Virginia and Langley Air Force Base. Yeah, not far away from where I grew up.
Well, the headquarters of the other CIA are in Langley. So our first kind of being out there at a conference. We started off in Langley, which is hilarious. And then
How
started
funny.
doing so, and then yeah, I know. So it's like, are we doing the right thing here? Like we must be on the right path somehow. And then there's continually been these kind of confirmations, that this is just so synchronous and so together that you couldn't make this up.
Of course.
And the other one being that I went, someone then was, they started calling me control because I was the chief, that kind of stuff. And then, all the funny things that would come out about us being like the Get Smart show, that kind of thing, calling ourselves agents and all that, hamming it up, so to speak. Anyway, Then I started doing some research of when Get Smart started, and it started in 1965 during a Pluto-Uranus sort of square. The seeding of a cycle, that the very big one that I was talking about before. And then, I think it was on Wikipedia or whatever, and then then I clicked on the actress's name, Barbara Feldon, and found out that she's got the same birthday as me. So Agent 99.
Awesome.
So I went. It was just like a message going, "Yeah, you just keep doing this. This is the job
cool.
you're made to do." So yeah,
cool.
I love those sort of those sort of
that
stories.
That is a great synchronicity.
Yeah. So we're agents now in the real world. It's a real job. I've created my own, fairy tale job in a sense.
Yes,
and
you
for
have.
others as well. Yes.
And congratulations on that, because not a lot of people break free from the typical day-to-day grind, so to speak, to
yeah, exactly.
have the opportunity to do something so amazing.
Yeah. But it started off with the whole idea of just, putting astrology out there in the world. And, I think we're doing a great job with it. And it's just, it's evolved. It's organic. We're not a, let's say, serious organization. Well, in certain ways we are. But
right.
in the sense
you don't take yourself too seriously, right?
Well, no, we do with our jobs, but not as in, like if you're going to join us as an agent, we're going to be on your back and make you do this. And,
you couldn't be as serious as the real CIA. That'd be impossible.
No, not at all. Well, that's the whole paradox, like we so, totally nothing like that. So at all.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. So yeah, no, it's been good. It's been fun and continues to be so.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, those were great stories. Thank you so much for sharing. So last and final question, I also like to kind of throw at people and put them on the spot. What is the meaning of life according to Julija?
Oh, wow. Well, the meaning of life, just have a great one.
Okay, that's a fair and good answer.
As good a life as you possibly can. The way that I consult with people and that type of thing, it's like the things that we get caught up with, we really have to question why we're doing that. Do I want that in my life? Do I need to do that? There are so many ways. I really believe in living the dream or being able to. We've just got to really believe that we can do it. And I've seen it in my own life. There's a particular attitude that I have that I don't think many others, other people don't easily get, let's say, but that we have to sort of shed, let's say, a lot of expectations, a lot of skin, and kind of lighten up to what's possible, because it really is.
It is.
That's my
whether
experience.
you think you can or think you can't, you're right, according to Henry Ford.
Right, that's right. So yeah, have a good one. That's the meaning of life.
I love it. Thank you.
One.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was perfect. And thank you for doing this interview. It's been fascinating to learn more about what you do. Once again, to all you listeners out there, it's cosmicintelligenceagency.com. If you haven't had an astrological chart reading, you really need to. It's like driving your car without ever looking at the owner's manual. And I know you've all read your owner's manual from front to back. So go onto the site and have a reading done. And I think, I know for me, and you gave me kind of an abbreviated version, even, for the sake of time and everything, that was very insightful and spot on. And it, like we discussed, it really gives me a renewed confidence. And, I'm not just, so far off the beaten path. And, I am actually in line with what I was born to do. And Those are questions that I think sometimes can come to anyone's mind.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's great to
really
know
is.
that, you're doing what you were born to do, and to find that, to uncover that in a chart. You might not, like with an astrologer, be able to uncover that like straight away, but it's incredible what does come up, and it's your own sort of truth and integrity that instead of waiting to be told what that is, it's about connecting to it, participating in the story and finding that out. So it's totally revealing and helpful and full of astrologers doing our job. We love our job. So that shows, I think, as well. So
it definitely shows.
we're here for you. We're here to do the best that we can with what you need as well. So we're healers, really.
Absolutely.
At the same time.
I like that. I say that often. I feel like all of us in this sort of work are healers in one way or another. Some people use words. My partner is a energy healer. She's doing things without opening her mouth. You're using charts. So it's all everyone. There's so many fascinating people using different healing modalities to help bring a shift in awareness and consciousness to this planet. And it is a fascinating time to be alive for that very reason. So I am thankful to have to have had the opportunity to share some of this precious time on planet Earth with you, Julija. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much again for participating.
It's my pleasure.
And we'll have to circle back around at some point.
Service.
Absolutely.
Yeah, part of the service.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no, my pleasure. And we'll talk again. Good luck with the show.
For sure. I will be in touch, and we'll have to circle back around and do another one at some point in the future. So
yeah, of course. There's always more to talk about. That's right.
Exactly. Okay, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. Until next time, remember, as long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Take care, everyone.